it's So from So's Real Thoughts. Today we're going to be talking about the Mr. Rogers documentary called Won't You Be My Neighbor? I'm pretty sure like a lot of the kids out there, meaning you guys, we all grew up watching Mr. Rogers, and I honestly did not realize till I watched the documentary how big of an impact Mr. Rogers had on my life. Immediately when the movie opened and you get the theme song and you see him singing, I like completely broke out into tears. This film is definitely a tearjerker. Bring some tissues, you're just gonna have a lot of fun. It's very nostalgic, reminiscent of your childhood, and it's just a really great documentary on a one-of-a-kind person who is Fred Rogers. This documentary is directed by award-winning documentarian Morgan Neville. He won the Academy Awards for his previous doc called 20 Feet from Stardom. He also did this fantastic doc called Best of Enemies that you have to watch. So this is a seasoned documentarian, and he's tackling one of the most iconic US figures in television, in media, in culture. And he did such a fantastic job because not only are we getting insightful details about how Mr. Rogers' neighborhood started from the beginning to where it went and the lessons that we learned, but also who Mr. Rogers was as a person. The controversies that have come out, the parodies, and with any biopic, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and we really get to see who Fred Rogers was as a person. As insightful and beautiful as his soul is, we are always wondering, like, come on, he's not always like that. There must have been some bad things he has done and maybe some scandals he wanted to cover up. You'll have to watch to find out. The best thing about Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which I had no idea because I was a young child watching it, is that he tackled a lot of taboo subjects like death, divorce, racism, things you probably would not see in a children's TV show. And yet he did, and he did it in a way that was palpable to not only children, but adults that are watching the show with their children. And how do you explain death to your child? How do you make it seem like it's okay for them to deal with such a almost devastating thing that's happening day in, day out? And I think it's through how he approaches this show, his use of puppets and his different personas that he's able to channel not only Mr. Rogers' kid self and how he felt, but what the kids who are watching all over the world are feeling as well. Especially because there's so many kids watching his show, but what he would like to do is bring the outside events that are happening, the real life events, into his show so kids can understand what is going on and not be so isolated in their own little box. And I think that's so brilliant. He just taught us so many lessons that I don't think I understood at that moment. Like, oh man, he's teaching us about racism. Of course. You know, no children actually knows about racism. They just think, oh cool, like everybody is like me. And definitely racism is a taught thing. I'm glad that he's able to bring that into his like fantastical world to teach us about acceptance and inclusion. They said he is the most unlikely TV star, and his stardom like blew up because children loved him so much. I think as a child, when you're watching Mr. Rogers, it's kind of incredible to see like, oh my god, is Mr. Rogers really like this in real life? Is he this kind? Is he this wonderful? Is he this insightful? We get a lot of those answers in this documentary. I honestly had no idea who Fred Rogers was outside of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And to me, to have a show like that exist when I was a child felt so bizarre almost, because it was almost like a meditation session. I grew up in the 90s. There were so many crazy TV shows coming out that were fast-paced, manic, and just explosive. And as a child, you're just feeding into all that. And then you tune into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where it's very quiet. He comes in, takes off his cardigan, puts on his inside shoes or slippers every day. With every show. I mean, in retrospect, of course, he had such a big impact on me. I would literally imitate him coming through the door, taking off my cardigan, switching my shoes, and I would sing the song and fake the puppets, which he all voiced every one of them. And you could just see who Fred Rogers really was. I think what's so brilliant about Fred Rogers is that he has this ability to tap into children's souls. Like he can just see you. When people say, I see you, yeah, whatever. But when Fred Rogers says, I see you, it really feels like he sees you as a person. He understands your struggle, what you're going through, especially as a child, you're confused, you internalize a lot of your feelings and emotions, and he helps you work through those emotions out. And I just loved it. This documentary was fantastic. If you want a good cry or was a fan of Mr. Rogers, I would definitely recommend this film. Definitely go watch it. It's amazing. Ugh. It's almost a gift and a pleasure to have witnessed somebody like Fred Rogers just live and hear his words of wisdom and have shared his life with us. And I feel very lucky. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning into my review. Let me know what other films you are watching, what I should be watching, and be sure to check out my website, www.sosrealthoughts.com. Thanks so much. I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye.